just want to quickly recap the New York Times, a remarkable piece of color. The backdrop, literally, to this video of President Trump calling FBI Director Comey over. An awkward moment for the director, apparently, because Trump, the president, had called him earlier to ask to be cleared, in essence, on Russia. The president kicked off his day, as he often does when he's angry, with a tweet or two from this morning on the naming of a special counsel. Quote, "This is the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history." Moments later, he tweeted, quote, "With all of the illegal acts that took place in the Clinton campaign and Obama administration, there was never a special counsel appointed." Keeping him honest, it's hard to know exactly what the president is referring to. There was the Petraeus affair, which was prosecuted fully. There was Benghazi, which was extensively investigated. The FBI investigated Hillary Clinton on her email server and found no criminal wrongdoing, just bad judgment. And in a general sense, the Obama administration was, by most accounts, notably short on major corruption scandals. As to the whole witch hunt aspect, the president was already on a roll on that from the day before. Here is his commencement speech yesterday at the Coast Guard Academy.
Look at the way I've been treated lately, especially by the media. No politician in history, and I say this with great surety, has been treated worse or more unfairly.
Can you imagine if that was your commencement address? One for the memory books. The four U.S. presidents who were shot dead might disagree also with that statement. Joining us now, Yahoo News and finance anchor Bianca Golodryga. Jeffrey Lyons is here, Mary Catherine Ham, and Brian Fallon. Jeffrey, I mean, is it helpful for the president to portray himself continually as a victim, as the greatest victim of all presidential
What he's
history?
saying, I was in the White House for the Iran-Contra affair. Ronald Reagan stood up at some point. He had the New York Jets there for the Super Bowl ceremony, and he referred to, I think it was Lawrence Taylor, as, you know, his fans or whatever. And all of a sudden he stopped and said, "I don't have many fans anymore." Presidents think this way when they're under assault. And I would make the point, particularly having been through Iran-Contra, that the media insisted that he had personal responsibility. It turned out he didn't. But every single night on the news, there was that finger pointing at the president and saying he was responsible. So I understand exactly what the president's going about. This is about agenda politics.
I guess there's a difference between an offhand remark by President Reagan and giving a commencement address, which is about how tough things are for him. Go forth unafraid. I got to tell you how bad things are for me, and constantly talking and tweeting about. I mean, every legal expert from the last couple of days has said, you know what, the best thing he can do is just be quiet. Don't keep talking about this investigation.
But he clearly sees a double standard. I see a double standard.
You would agree, though, that it's not wise for him to continue to tweet and talk about this. He could be talking about his agenda moving forward.
But he should do that. You're correct. He should move the agenda forward.
Right.
Absolutely.
Brian, I mean, this is an opportunity. You could look at it as an opportunity for the president to just say, you know what, there's a special counsel, there's an investigation, we give it our blessing, we're moving forward, and that be done with it.
Absolutely. In the long term, Bob Mueller is going to investigate this aggressively, and if there's any wrongdoing, he's going to find it, and it's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of aides that are going to have to retain private counsel and potentially answer questions. But in the short term, it really is a blessing in disguise for this Trump White House for two reasons. Number one, Bob Mueller does his work methodically, and he does it quietly, meaning that this investigation is probably now going to take a long time, and there's not going to be leaks, because that's not the way that Bob Mueller operates. And that gives the Trump White House the space to duck questions and say, hey, look, there's a process afoot, we're going to let that play out, and in the meantime focus on their agenda. The second way in which it's a blessing in disguise is I think it actually might quiet Jim Comey. Jim Comey is a longtime friend and also views Bob Mueller as a mentor figure. He is going to be loath, I think, now to start leaking out these memos and perhaps even not want to testify on Capitol Hill anymore, knowing that it would undercut Bob Mueller's investigation.
It also could be a blessing for the president in that if Mueller finds nothing illegal, no actual illegal behavior, maybe poor judgment, maybe collusion, but no actual illegality, he may not even make a report about it. He would just say there's nothing to prosecute here, and it's done, and the full story might not actually be known.
Well, because as we know, the president seems to be his own worst enemy. He can't help himself. He keeps tweeting. He's the one, by the way, who fired Comey. He's the one who invited the Russians into the Oval Office without the American press. He's the one who said in an interview that, oh, I fired him over the Russians. So the big if is whether or not the president can control himself, and we know that these investigations can take months, if not years.
It's also fascinating that this president believes that he's able to talk his way out of stuff. In fact, the more he talks, the deeper he gets in. I mean, today he reversed himself again, going back to Rod Rosenstein's memo which days ago he said, oh, no, that's, I knew what I was going to do before that.
Well, he talked himself into the presidency by doing that. So I think that's what he's referring to. He's looking back and going, look, this has worked so far. I don't think it will work on this occasion. And he can't see where he has an opportunity to say, there's an investigation going on. We give that investigation our blessing. This guy is well respected, and we can't comment on it right now. That's a great opportunity. Now let me turn to talking about what I'm actually trying to do. I think he's on safe political ground saying, look, I have political adversaries who want to take me out for any reason. That's certainly true, and it's true of any president. He's also safe framing it as, a media fight versus real America, and I think that would be politically useful to him, and he can speak about his agenda in that way. Once you go beyond that and start talking about the actual investigation and contradicting all of your aides along the way, it just makes things more complicated and messy for you, and you're already a complicated and messy person.
The White House has also reached a point, and I say this with no glee at all. I mean, I think everybody wants to be able to trust the word that is coming out. The White House makes an official statement. You want to believe that it is real. They're making a statement that, this conversation between Comey, between then Director Comey and the president, it didn't happen. It didn't happen the way that it's being reported. The only two people who know are the two people who were in the room at the time. And the president has a history of saying things to his aides which turn out not to be true, or not telling his aides what actually were said. I mean, we saw this when he was briefed on that 2-page summary of that 35-page dossier. He didn't tell his aides, and his aides went out there. They came on CNN, they attacked CNN, so your reporting is wrong. We were right. He was briefed, and it later came out.
Yeah, and I think that causes further problems for him because, for instance, with the Rosenstein thing, Rosenstein picks this special counsel, I think in part because he was undermined a week earlier. He was in the Trump orbit for 2 weeks, and he was undermined pretty largely by the president. And so you get this situation where he's built a reputation for many, 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 many years and needs to make sure that he is preserving it as an honest broker, and part of that is bringing in the independent guy to look into this.
And there's also a credibility problem on the president's part as well. I mean, you see time and time again that his aides trying to defend him, and then he just throws them under the bus. I think what we're seeing in this New York Times article is really backing up, is that a lot of Comey's aides are coming to his defense. You're not going to see that much coming from the president's aides because time and time again they seem to be undermined by their boss.
There is a question here that I'm sure the Trump White House is aware of. Certainly I've heard this in conservative circles. If you go back to the Obama interview with Chris Wallace of Fox Sunday back in April of last year, in which he uses the language that Hillary Clinton didn't intentionally have her email problem and it wasn't intended, and then a couple months later, Director Comey uses almost exactly that same language. So the question is raised, was President Obama sending a visual signal to Director Comey, this is where I want you to go? Because that is, in fact, where Director Comey...
And I remember a lot of questions being asked about the president saying that at the time. Everyone was saying, how can he say that?
I'm just saying the feeling is out there that the media firestorm, I mean, I've seen this in print over there at National Review from Andy McCarthy, who's the former prosecutor, that the firestorm that is following this for President Trump wasn't there for President Obama.
Well, that's not true. I mean, I remember reporting, I mean, I can't speak for the media in general, but I do remember raising that issue when the President of the United States said that. I mean, it raises all sorts of questions.
Well,
and then so correspondingly, should there be a special counsel to go back and look?
I mean,
no. I'm asking rhetorically.
I think there seems to be a lot more evidence here. I mean, look, Rod Rosenstein looked at the evidence, the Department of Justice looked at, and he's the one who appointed the special counsel. I mean, the White House just last week was singing his praises and how credible he is, to now suddenly, be questioning whether he should have done this.
Well, and when it comes to the firestorm, because I do think there's a lot of, the smoke gets billowing and billowing, sometimes with help, and then you're not really seeing the facts that clearly. And I think Mueller being quiet and having not so many leaks and having a clear plan here, and he's a very methodical guy, actually could help some of the distinguishing between what is smoke and what is fire.
But
Jeff Zeleny